In this lesson, we will create a face and rough turning toolpath on our sample part. I have file left spindle face and rough turning ops.mcam open, and I've saved it as an in-process file. This is the same part we set up in lesson 3, the setup. The first thing I want to do is I want to bring in our tool library that I've prepared for this job. So I'll go to the Lathe Tool Manager, and it brings me to the default library, the default tool library. I'll go to the folder where this lesson is stored and open up this ToolDB. So I'll grab all of these tools and bring them up. Then I'll go over to milling and do the same. Okay, so I'll save it there. Now we're going to create some toolpaths, some of which are going to create geometry. I like to put that geometry on its own level. So I'm going to go ahead and make level 30 active, called Toolpath Geometry. And I also want to remember it in my view sheets. But I can also see that my stock display is not on. So if I turn my left stock, my chuck, and my right chuck on, and I need to make this stock display active, you can see them all there. So in this case, for my 2D profile, I'm going to turn the right chuck off, and this is what I'd like to see in this view sheet. So if I save this view sheet at this point, and I come back to this guy here, and come over here, you can see that I've got this ready to go. So I'll come up to the turning tab, and I'll grab the face operation. I'm going to use T0101, the OD rough right. We'll put a comment in there of left spindle face. We can change our speeds and feeds if we want. Depend on the material we're cutting, obviously. So we'll make this 450. We'll bring our max spindle speed down a little bit. Whatever the machine and the material will handle. We'll look at our face parameters, and you can see that it wants to cut using the stock, which is the easiest way to do it. If for some reason we don't have stock, we've got an odd shape, we can go out and select points. The defaults I have set here should work fine for what we want to do. I would encourage you to go in and try some of these other settings and see what they do and see how they work. They're fairly self-explanatory. They are definitely worth trying. So I'm going to create this toolpath, and you can see I now have 2 points here. I've got a start point and an end point for this face toolpath. And if I go back to the toolpath manager and click on my toolpath, it'll bring me to backplot. So I'll just step through this, and I can see I have a nice facing toolpath. Next, I want to go in and do a rough toolpath. So I'll grab the rough op. Now I have a variety of ways I can chain here. The partial selection method is a good method to use when selecting geometry for a turning toolpath. You can see as it select the entry point or chain the inner boundary. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to grab the chamfer in the front, and I'm going to grab this last chamfer on the back side. So we're going to cut the whole profile. We'll green check OK. Now I do want to put a comment in here. We are in the left upper axis combination, which we were for the facing toolpath as well. Again, we can change our speeds and feeds here if we choose to. 200 is a little slow. That's a pretty aggressive feed rate, but again, it depends on material. Let's go in and take a look at the rough parameters. So before I change too many things, I want to go ahead and green check out and see what I get. So I get a pretty decent looking toolpath here. Let's start to make some changes to get, I want this to come beyond the back side of the part a little bit. I want a little bit of clearance cut here. I'd like it to cut up to the stock here. You can see that I go full depth of cut here. And I also come away here. I might want to come up the face of this. So I'll go to parameters, and I want to go to lead in, lead out. So our lead in is fine. For lead out, I could extend or shorten the end of the contour, which would work okay, but it would be extending an angular line down. In this case, I'm going to add a line. So I'll select add line. I'll go ahead and define it. I'll define it from here out. And you can see I want about 150 thousandths at an angle of 180. So we'll say OK. I want my lead out to be straight up. Let's see what happens with that. A green check out. And I also want to use stock recognition. So I want to use my stock for outer boundary. There's a few different selections here. Now, this adjust stock will show me what I have for stock. So you can see this is what MasterCam sees for stock. There's some different options down here, but I just wanted to show this to you so you can see what MasterCam sees, that it knows it has to cut. I'll green check out. I'll regenerate, and you can see that I'm now accounting for the material all the way up here. My lead out is coming straight up. I'm going past the back side of the part a little bit. There's a variety of other parameters I could change in here. I'll leave that up to you to go ahead in and try them and see what different parameters do. But we have a working toolpath that we can continue to process with.